starting.
It's starting. It might be. Oh, there's one person.
Wait,
Hi, one.
says it's
Hi.
live now. So
Yay. It might
okay,
just be us.
it might just be. It takes a minute for people to come in. So sorry, everybody. Of course, once again, technical difficulties, which is why here they
Hi,
come. Which
friends.
is why we hate Substack.
Well,
So,
it's the one mechanism that is allowing us to chat with other people. So we're happy that you guys were able to join us. Um, Apologize that there's been a lot going on, I think, in both of our lives. So we have not been able to do a scaffolding, an actual live one, for a while. We went to um, New Mexico and El Paso, and then we're traveling. And then also, when we got back, my grandma unfortunately was ill and then passed away. And so we've just had a lot going on.
yeah, and then when I got back, I had a bunch of events that week, and then
Yeah, you had a
also
bunch. Jenn got an award,
yeah, I
which is
did.
very exciting. Um,
Yeah, and then family friends that were ill that I had to go help take care of and stuff. So our
right.
personal lives got in the way, and we felt we needed to not only
Thank
decompress from
you.
what we went through in El Paso and New
Yeah.
Mexico, but we needed to take care of some family members too. So
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot happening. So, thank you for the condolences. My grandmother, I was lucky enough; she was 101 years old. So, there's not too many people over the age of 50 that even have a grandma. So, I was really blessed to have had her for as long as I did. But I appreciate the condolences. So, and yes, congratulations to Jenn for. Can you talk about your award that you won?
It's from a group called Immigrants List, and so it's immigration attorneys, and so that was kind of neat to be an ex-agent and get an award from immigration attorneys.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was really nice. And then getting to meet all the other people who won awards. The Attorney General of California was there, and all the stuff that he's been doing, which I honestly hadn't kept up on. So it's good to know that also people of power and people within our government, at least our state governments, are fighting back and so forth. So it was really good to be around people who were working really hard
Yeah.
to stop
Well, it's
this.
well deserved, Jen. It's well deserved.
Oh, I appreciate that. So I
Well,
do want to say a happy birthday to one of my favorite aunts. She's not really my aunt. She's now my adopted aunt, I guess. Kim Gonzalez, who happens to be
she's my aunt.
she's your aunt, yeah. But
Yes.
we got really close in El Paso, so we're
Mhm.
kind of like almost family now, and I
Today
just
it is
adore
her
Kim.
birthday, and in a large Puerto Rican family such as mine, I actually have an aunt who's only 2 years older than me, who is married and actually married into the family. Like she's married to my uncle, so and she is just the best. She went
There's
with
Kimmy
us.
break. Kimmy a break.
She was with us in El Paso because she is a rock star who also
Mhm.
fights for human rights and civil rights, and she is my partner in good trouble, I would say, here in Ohio.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Definitely.
we wanted to come on today because there was a number of things that we thought that we needed to talk about, and then also we really felt like we need to be doing these more, and so we've talked about trying to jump on scaffolding because there's too many things that happen in the in connection with women's rights. Too many things are going on at one time for us to even just talk about things once a week. So we're going to add a couple other um, scaffolding lives over the course of the week. So we're thinking about Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll let people know. And we'll regularly then also try to continue doing them on Sunday. But just going into just this last week, and I know the Turning Point, was it the Turning Point conference, Jen? Was that what it was actually
Mhm.
called?
Turning
That
Point
wasn't this
USA
past
conference.
week, but we did want to talk about that. So would you like to share some of your comments on what you've seen?
I think it's interesting that so many of these young Turning Point USA women are telling other women that they misunderstand feminism and that feminism tells you you can't have everything. And they're telling young women, I have children, I have a business or a couple of businesses, I managed to cook for my man, I managed to do all this other, and they're lying to you all. These are the same lies that they told my mother back in the 60s, and made her stay home and made her give birth to many children, and and then at the same time telling her you can have it all, you can have it all. And it's just not realistic. It wasn't realistic in the 60s, and it's not realistic now. They want you to believe that you can do all these things yourself. Well, I hate to tell you, these women at Turning Point USA are not minding their own children. They have nannies, they're rich, and of course you can do it if you're rich, but the majority of Americans are not wealthy like these women are. And just the absolute bullshit that they're putting out to women, like, you can do it on your own. You don't need the government to help you with childcare. You don't need this, you don't need that. It's all on you. And so then you feel like a failure when you can't achieve these insurmountable goals that they're setting for you, but they're making money off of you. So it just, like, Erica Kurt is the most extreme example of this, where she inherits this business from her husband and then gets up there and claims that she's got it all. She's a great mother and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're doing exactly what you're saying women shouldn't do. So it's just hypocrisy on a level that's beyond. It's so typical of the zeitgeist that we're in right now, of bullshit, of absolute total bullshit. So.
Let me just say this. Like, I was a trad wife before I even knew that was a term. Back in the day, now I would also say I made the choice to stay. That's a personal choice for every individual woman. I made the choice to stay home with my children. I will also say that we started a business, a successful, thriving company when we were 26 years of age, which enabled me to be able, Stepford Wives, exactly. Sometimes you do feel that way. And which enabled me to be able to do a lot of the things that I did do. I was able to get a babysitter if I wanted during the middle of the day, because I could afford to do that. There was a lot of other things, being able to go to the gym, doing those sort of things. But I will say it's also extremely lonely, and people are not being truthful when they try to make it out like being a mother is just so simple. I'm just sitting home canning fresh peaches. And, the reality is
watching soap operas.
In a lot of these situations,
it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Well, it's a very 1950s portrayal of, and back in the 50s, if you recall, it was a status that if, to be able to stay home, that was the thing of how women measured one another, and men measured each other regarding whether or not their wives could afford to stay home. Right. So, and even a lot of the women that I knew back then, there were, you'd go into their house that looked glorious from the outside, and the inside, they couldn't afford furniture. Right. Or, and it was, their lives were actually a mess because they were so big about the, putting on this facade. Appearances. Exactly. And so I also know what it's like. When my children were 13, my youngest was 13, I went back to work, and then also became a single mother. So I've experienced, a lot of these different realms, and they're all difficult. None of it's easy. It's not easy to work and have children, little kids. It's not easy to work and have larger kids, because you're getting phone calls in the middle of the day. Hey, I forgot my cleats. I forgot my lunch. Where are my socks? What, so
it's a full-time job that's not paid for. And, and like in Mexico, they actually get a stipend. So people who in Mexico, thanks to their wonderful president, who's a woman now, if you work in the home, whether you're providing for, elderly family members, or you're taking care of the children, making sure that they're getting what they need, making sure your partner, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. I think it's important work when you have children. If you can stay home and do that and run the household for your family, regardless of what your gender is or what your situation is,
If you
that's
want to
ideal.
do that, if
If
it
you
works
want
for
to
you.
do that, and you
It
can
doesn't
do
work
that,
for everyone
but
because
it
it's
doesn't.
very lonely. It's very difficult for
Yeah.
someone said the 50s were no treat either. I'll bet you they weren't, Carol. I've heard this from my grandmothers too. And what's really interesting is my grandmother. So here's a fun story that I told actually all the young women in my family, because there are some religious kind of influences that are trying to influence members of our family. My grandmother was a devout Catholic woman. They're still saying novenas because she was just buried last Saturday. And so for 9 days after they're buried, it is in the Spanish culture, at least, they'll do meet and do rosaries an entire, and the last day they do 3 and say them together for 9 days afterwards. She wore rosary beads around her neck when she got older, so she would always know where they were, so she could say them whenever. That same woman had 13 children because when she was had 6 or 7 children, the only person who could help watch her children so she could have her tubes tied was her mother. And her mother said, no, it's God's will. I'm not going to watch your kids, because it would have required her to be hospitalized for 3 days. And she proceeded to have, 6 or 7 more children. When I was getting married and said, do you have any advice? Do you want to know what it was? She said, go on birth control. That is what she said. Yeah. So, and this is a devout Catholic woman. So I think that we need to be kinder to one another as women. For those women who choose to work, to not work, to not even have a family. I mean, it's hard. And there's plenty of reasons for people not to want to do that, right? Yeah. So, and all of those people that are talking about, I'd rather have my husband vote for me. I'd rather have him speak for me. He knows. I mean, come on. You know what? It's America. Women. And it's supposed to be, if you want to do that, have at it. If you want to give that over to your husband and allow him to be I don't want to do it, but if that's what someone chooses to do, great. Don't impose that upon other women. And I don't think they understand how much women have fought for us to get to where we are and then slide backwards.
I will tell you too, so with my mother was very intelligent, but she had serious mental health issues at the same time. And so she started having children in, I want to say 1969 with my brother, and I was in 1971. And then she had 3 miscarriages, and then she had my sister 8 years after I was born. And my whole life was spent with her telling us how we ruined her life and how she could not then go back to college and become the attorney that she wanted to become, and this and that. And she spent her whole life resenting the fact that I think she would have been great if she had us and then had the ability to go back to college and stuff. But that wasn't something that was afforded to her. And she ended up being very bitter and angry her whole entire life and blaming her children for all of that, which obviously led to a horrible relationship between all of us. So these young women that are telling other women to just give up all their rights and you'll be happy serving your husband and this and that, that is the bullshit lie that they tell you. And these men, most of the time, once they're done using your body and your body has been used to birth out all these children on it, quite honestly, a lot of times they cheat and they move on and you are left with the children and everything else. And when you try and get your child support and stuff, the courts won't support it. They support the men. And I can't tell you how many women, professional women I know, very important professional women, cannot get the courts to make these men pay for the children
Yeah.
that they have created. And so you will be stuck with these children and doing it all on your own. Those are the stories they don't want you to know. So they are romanticizing the 50s and 60s and 70s. And when you go back and talk to the women who lived during that time, they're like, oh, that's just bullshit. That's just bullshit. That's not the way it happened. So
No, it's not the way it happens. And I've seen it on both ends. So I think that it's completely unrealistic the image that they're portraying. And their influencers. So they're, who are, of course, have birthed these babies and they've gone back right immediately to their pre-birth figure and are just like putting out the most obscene standards that they're trying to make other women feel bad. And it's just not like that at all. When the reality is, what's happening is, while he might be at work, she has the flu and might be like, no one's able to help her. The kids are crying. They're sick too. You're trying to get breakfast and lunch on dinner on the table. Your husband's like, hey, did you have a chance to wash my underwear? I mean, like, there's these unrealistic expectations that are put on mothers and women. And I really think that the image that they're trying to put out there is just nonsense, absolute nonsense.
And I think too, you had mentioned, Lisa, the point that many of these young women don't even know their own history of their civil rights. Can you remind us the historical points that women have gone through? And a lot of it in our lifetimes. I mean, I was born in 71, and a lot of these, like, we got the right to use credit cards, I think in 73 or 74, something like that. Roe v. Wade in 73, and now it's gone with Dobbs and stuff. So I've seen this, go in my lifetime back and forth.
So just to reiterate to people, how many in 1900 women gained property and wage rights? Okay. In 1910, women could wear pants. I mean, crazy. In 1920, Native American women became citizens in their own country. Yeah. In 1963, women gained equal pay rights. Or I'm sorry. Also in 1920, white women could vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And also remind people that Susan B. Anthony, the one who fought for women's right to vote for as long, and she's on, she made it on a coin or something. Okay. But listen, she never actually got to vote in a presidential election. She died never actually having the right to vote. So there's that. 1965, Black women could vote. So from 1920, from 1920 to 1965, that's 45 years until Black women were able to vote. And now
they're taking that away again.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah.
In 1969, women were allowed to initiate divorce from their husbands. In 1972, they could get birth control without a man. And in 1974, they could buy a home and get a credit card without a man. That is when they could open up their own bank account.
Mm-hmm.
In 1994, women gained legal protection against domestic abuse. That is when, in 1990, around then is when I started working at a domestic violence shelter in Las Vegas. And I got to tell you, even though they had protection, let me just tell you, there wasn't as much protection. So in 2022, women fought to get Roe v. Wade back, and we're still fighting, right?
Right.
And now we have to, it's 2026, and we have to, it's like we've been rolled back to the 50s. We have less rights today than we did in 1965. I don't know for sure if that's true, but I would not be surprised. Yes. And as Frances had mentioned, she's right. Abortion is currently illegal in 13 states in nearly all circumstances. So
it's been how many years since Dobbs? 4 years
so
now?
we had the anniversary of June 24th marked 4 years since Dobbs and abortion access remained the dominant, was removed.
Mm.
So I don't know if I'm saying this right. Guttmacker's mid-year review said 13 states, like Francis had said, enforce total abortion bans. 28 other states ban abortions at some point between 6 weeks and viability. So the current fights that are going on are not just about clinic access. They also include bills on fetal personhood, heartbeat theories, criminal penalties, pregnancy loss care, abortion bills, telehealth, contraception, and state constitutional amendments. My state, in Ohio, someone passed this heartbeat bill, and then like the next year or in 24, I believe, we actually, it actually was in our Constitution. And we voted by almost 60%, the state of Ohio voted to enshrine abortion rights into the state of Ohio's Constitution. And I am here to tell you that we also, they're still trying to fight in different ways in the state of Ohio to take it away, even though it's enshrined into our Constitution. So that is a real thing that is facing us on the regular. So we need to stay aware and make sure that we continue fighting for these rights. Is there anything also, as of June 3rd, 2026, at least 17 states and 1 territory have introduced 36 bills that would embed personhood language in the state code for the fetus. Also, 8 states have introduced 14 bills that would explicitly criminalize a pregnant person for getting an abortion. So, for example, and this is all from Guttmacker's mid-year review, which I will add these links in when we send this out so people can review it and take a look themselves. For example, a Tennessee bill was introduced that would have allowed the state to charge pregnant people who access abortion care with homicide. And and they flagged 2026 activity for many bills that could criminalize pregnant women. So, and also noted that 142,000 people traveled across state lines for abortion care in 2025, while 91,000 women in total banned states received telehealth abortion care. So,
I wonder what the number of women who've died.
I don't have that statistic, but
and I don't think we're allowed to know it, quite honestly. I don't see anybody. I'm looking on my phone to see if I can find it, but I don't think we're allowed to know it. Because they don't really talk about it other than a few specific cases. Like I know there was a woman who is kept alive with machines so that her baby could then be born, and the baby had all sorts of complications from it as well. And then the hospital turned around and basically charged the family for it, even though the family did not want any of that. But it says, I see on MSM, it says 4 years after Dobbs. How do we count the dead? So, I mean, there's all these stories, but I don't think there's a really good accounting of it. And that's done on purpose, obviously.
I think that's something that we should research, but I think you're right. I don't think there's anywhere for us to be able to
Let's research that and then come back with that the next time we meet for a live and see about that.
Also, I would say so in Missouri, the AP News reported a judge struck down several abortion restrictions after voters approved a reproductive rights constitutional amendment in 2024. So very similar to Ohio. And the ruling invalidated restrictions, including the state's 72-hour waiting period and a requirement that the initial medication abortion dose be taken in a provider's presence. So Planned Parenthood said the decision would allow it to prescribe abortion pills to Missouri patients for the first time since 2018, even though the state attorney general said he would appeal, and another abortion-related measure is expected on the 2026 ballot. So, and also just to make sure that we're staying aware that medication abortion is still a national flashpoint, because the Supreme Court had already kept telehealth and mail access to mifepristone in place, but Louisiana's challenge continues to move forward. So I guess on June 23rd, the Fifth Circuit granted Louisiana's request to expedite the appeal.
Of course they did.
And Reuters reported that mifepristone is used in about 64% of abortions, while the Center for Reproductive Rights is tracking related cases that could go beyond telehealth rules and challenge the FDA approval on federal mailing rules. So there is still a lot of concerns around that.
And seeing the United States Postal Service come out and say they're not going to deliver absentee ballots for like the military and stuff for the next elections, you're like, obviously it's going to, they can just turn around and say, we're not going to deliver abortion drugs. We're not going to do this. So they're just going to violate the law. He just testified before Congress his intention to violate the law. So, that's where we are.
Also wanted to mention that a group of senators sent a letter on June 24th raising concerns about moms.gov. How many of y'all are familiar with moms.gov? Have you all heard about it? Because
I don't know about it.
Okay, so they wrote, because on Mother's Day, the administration started a new website. So the gist of the letter, I'll read it here quickly. They write, with deep alarm regarding moms.gov, a new Trump administration's website that directs pregnant women to unregulated and often non-medical anti-abortion facilities known as crisis pregnancy centers. This raises profound concerns about the health, safety, and privacy of people who access this government website at a time when women's health and reproductive rights increases attacks. Since the U.S. Supreme Court took away the fundamental right to abortion care in Dobbs, 21 states have banned or severely restricted access to abortion, decimating access to care for tens of millions of people. Yet instead of offering concrete resources to protect the health and safety of pregnant women and their families, the Trump administration is using this website to highlight anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers. They launched it on Mother's Day. It's called moms.gov. They're calling it a groundbreaking website for new and expectant mothers, purporting to offer guidance and information on the well-being of moms and their families. But upon entering the website, they're greeted with a banner stating that it is an official website of the United States government and presented with a large photo of a pregnant woman's body without a face. And a text box asserts navigating pregnancy can feel overwhelming, but you don't have to do it alone. So that is, obviously that matters because crisis pregnancy centers are a long-running women's rights issue, and the supporters of it are framing them as pregnancy support organizations, while abortion rights activists and medical groups argue they can mislead patients through discouraging abortions and contraception, and also collect sensitive data on women outside of normal clinical privacy rules. So there we have it.
Kimmy doesn't like it either.
I don't blame Kimmy because it makes me upset.
Yeah.
Also, we wanted to talk about Tom Homan's recent comments about speaking with girls who were raped by cartel members. And I think Jenn has a few things to share about that.
Yeah, I have a few things to share about that. All right, so I saw, was it yesterday or maybe the day before, and I had to take a little bit of time to think about it. And so Tom Homan was giving a press conference, and he was trying to explain that he's saying that Donald Trump's policies are actually protecting migrants and migrant children, according to him. Okay. And one of the things Tom Homan likes to do is talk about his own personal trauma as an immigration agent and official. And his own personal trauma revolves around retelling or exposing himself to the violence that his agencies put these immigrants into. So he'll say things like, I've stood in the back of a truck and seen 72 people dead from being basically cooked to death and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, poor Tom Homan. I'm sorry you had to witness that. The results of your own policies.
Yep.
That is the results of your own policies. And so, but on this day, he mentioned the people in the truck, but he also mentioned, for some reason, he claims he has gotten down on his knees and looked into the eyes of a 9-year-old little girl who he says was raped by cartel. So I'll have a few things to say about that. And I had to write it down because I will rant if I don't write it down. So apologize for reading. I'm used to seeing immigration officials use the trauma of immigrants for their own benefit. I'm also used to the media allowing this co-opted trauma. But let me be clear. The trauma endured by immigrant children is not Tom Homan's trauma, even though he's exploiting it. First off, Tom Homan should not be forcing victims, especially children, of sexual assault to recount their stories to him. It is known protocol that you do not make sexual assault victims tell their stories over and over and over again, like they're doing in the Epstein case, because that further traumatizes them, and especially children. And Tom Homan, as far as I know, is not an expert in child sexual assault. When he was head of ICE, he was head of ICE ERO, which is the removal operations. He was not in charge of HSI, which does have purview over child sexual assault crimes. So I can only assume that Tom Homan is going to sit before little children and say, would you please tell me how you were raped by the cartel? Because he wants those stories so he can then tell the press, woe is me, I've had to listen to these horrible stories. So
the other thing about that is confidential information. Yeah. So there is no, here's my question to you, Jenn. Do we actually have any way to he could it's possible that he could be making it up?
He could be making it up. Okay. And so if that happened, what did you do for that child? I'm going to tell you what he would have done for that child. According to his own policies, he does not agree with giving these children visas because they are victims. He does not agree with giving them, I think they're called T visas. I've even heard they're all sorts, but if you're a victim of sex trafficking, whether child or adult or whatever, you can get a visa to testify against these people, but they don't even issue that. His administration, he argues against administering these visas for these victims that he is then throwing out to the press as, well, I've seen this and this and this. This is how bad it is. So, if that's really true, let's see the case. Let's see the case that has happened. But of course, he just gives out these anecdotes.
But what do you know about the reality of migrant children and women that are being abused?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I almost poked myself in the eye. This further traumatizes victims, something anyone who knows anything about sexual assault is aware of. It's in the protocols if you are a specialist in this. And he is not an expert in child sexual trauma and is using these accounts so that the press will not question him. So when he throws this out, when they start to question him about his policies, he'll throw out one of these anecdotes. I've had to get on my knees and listen to little children talk about their rapes by cartel, which does happen. It does happen. But he's doing that so that the press will then stop questioning him on that line of his policies. And it works every single time. They shut up. They be quiet.
Me crazy.
And so when Homan inevitably does this again, the press needs to ask why he insists on making these children recount the sexual violence they have endured. The media should also point out that it was Homan's child separation policy that he himself drafted for Trump's first term that led to many, many reports of child sexual abuse in Southwest key child detention centers, specifically in those detention centers. It was Tom Homan's policy that took them from their asylum-seeking parents simply for crossing the border and requesting asylum. It was Tom Homan's policy that put those children in those centers, and then they were abused. There were charges brought against them by the Biden Department of Justice for these allegations. But then the DOJ stalled until Trump's second term, when Pam Bondi's Department of Justice suddenly dropped all the charges against Southwest key predators, letting them go. These child sexual assaults were a direct outcome of Tom Homan's child separation policy. Would not have happened without Tom Homan's policy. Yet Homan only seems to care about child sexual assault when it's perpetrated by anyone but his agents. He's never expressed concern for the female agents who alleged that they were forced to perform sex acts for Border Patrol Chief Tony Barker Jr., nor for Border Patrol Deputy Chief Joel Martinez. Homan has had nothing to say about the recent resignation of Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks for engaging in sexual tourism. Nothing to say about Agent Bart Conrad Yeager, who is currently on trial in Arizona for 5 counts of what? Child sex trafficking.
Wow.
And 6 counts of prostitution with a minor, and 6 counts of inducing child prostitution.
Wow.
He's had nothing to say when his ICE HSI agents were investigating sex trafficking and were found to routinely engaging in paid sex with those same victims, which I would argue is rape, because if they're being trafficked and they're victims and you're paying them for sex, that's against their will. The agency held no one accountable for those, and instead argued that sex with sex trafficked victims was not expressly forbidden in ICE HSI policy. He most certainly has never demanded any investigation into the thousands of girls being trafficked and even inspected by his CBP agents for decades by the Epstein network. Homan is not even the least bit curious as to know how this child sex trafficking ring occurred, or why CBP, his agents, who claim to be the experts in child sex trafficking, failed to identify it. They're not even investigating how they missed all this sex trafficking because they don't fucking care. His assurance that no children are being raped right now because of Trump's policies is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
The border is not closed, contrary to what they're saying. There are plenty of people crossing out there. They're just not reporting that. That is the whole reason why they put the military down on the border,
Right.
is so that we can't track that they're lying about the amount of people who are crossing. People are still being trafficked, still being abused. And that is especially true among the systems and agencies of ICBP and Border Patrol that belong to Tom Homan.
Well, that is another question I have. Well, I'll ask when you're done, because
I'm almost done.
Okay. Yeah.
I got 2 more paragraphs.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Homan is using the trauma of child sexual assault victims to justify his actions. He wants people to pity him for listening to their trauma. Homan is not the victim here. He is the designer of policies and systems that allow for child sexual abuse, and then covers it up when his agents and agencies are involved. Reminder of what Tom Homan does with children. Let me remind you of what Tom Homan does with children who are sexually assaulted by a cartel. He deports them right back into cartel hands every single time. Tom Homan, well, perhaps not every single time, but a lot of times, Tom Homan does not care about immigrant kids who are victimized by the cartel, period. That's my rant. Okay, what's your question?
Well, my question is, how come the press isn't asking, because everybody knows, Tom Ossoff's report about children in custody, in ICE custody, that have talked about how many children have been, they have likened it to torture, and talked about the abuse. There's over 400 and some cases of abuse against children and women. How come no one is asking him about the children that are being, there are actual reports that have been put out by senators. So why, in fact, is the press, and they're aware of these reports.
They're aware of all this. I've been talking about the rape culture of the Border Patrol specifically, but extends into CBP and ICE and all of the federal government, quite honestly. The press knows about all this.
Exactly.
Nothing I've done is collected all the information and said, look, this is how bad it is. And it shows the system, and it shows the cover-up systems. And it is because the federal government operates cover-up systems when their federal employees abuse, whether it's abusing each other, abusing the public at large, abusing immigrants. Everybody knows that with the children that go into these shelters, a lot of times these shelters, they are not performing the background checks. And when they complain, I remember in the Biden administration, they were holding, speaking of El Paso, I was in El Paso with our friend Diana Martinez, protesting holding children on Fort Bliss. And at that time, Biden had asked other federal agencies to have employees volunteer, like maybe from Department of Labor or FDA, volunteer to go help and assist in that facility in Fort Bliss. And those federal employees were blowing the whistle like crazy, saying there's so much child sexual abuse going on here and nobody does anything about it. And you know what they did? They got rid of those employees. They just get rid of them. They just cover it up constantly. And it is no wonder, once I saw the Epstein thing, I'm like, it's no wonder you all cover this up. This is the number one response. If we can make a case out of it and it's people that we want to hurt, then we'll make a case out of it. But if it's one of our employees as a federal government, one of our agents, or somebody who's wealthy that donates to us, then we're not going to talk about it. That's what's going on. The sexual abuse of people, especially immigrants and children, is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. And Tom Homan, when you ask him about his agency, you ask him about all the way from your junior agents to your chiefs doing this kind of stuff, they'll be like, those people don't represent the fine men and women of the United States. And he'll get mad and be like, you know what we've had to look at in the trauma that we go through because of these policies we enforce. And he'll go crazy. And it's like, but they're your fucking policies. They're your fucking policies. You're the one creating this. And there is nothing that has done more to enable predators to get their hands on these children, and especially the women, the immigrants, than the policies of the U.S. Border Patrol, ICE, and CBP, all created by these men who then cover up for the men in their agencies who are engaging in this as well. So sexual assault only matters to people like Tom Homan when the perpetrator provides political opportunity for them. That's all they care about. They don't give a shit about sexual assault.
But that's what adds insult to injury for women, for all of us who care about this, to hear. Isn't it the worst? Because they are experts at being able to flip it, and every accusation is a confession, right?
Yeah. Even in the Epstein case, they had CBP Document after document. Yeah, I saw
Yes.
all the girls. They looked happy. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not even a question in their mind. Oh, I don't know.
Right. It makes absolute, but I think we have to, especially, knowing what should have happened when they encountered any of the Epstein victims and these planes and what have you. Like, no, I still can't understand why nobody else is talking about the fact that, hey, they actually came across government agents who should have done something
And
about
they
this.
didn't do anything. And you know why? One of the reasons why they didn't do anything is because they were asking Epstein for personal loans because they were being treated to lunch on his island and all this. But the federal government took that testimony and said, well, it didn't amount to that much, so it's not that big of a deal.
Oh, of course not. Of
Yeah.
course not.
But what it amounted to was thousands of young girls being trafficked to that island, being trafficked to New Mexico, being trafficked to New York City, being trafficked to Florida. But so,
Speaking of Epstein, I do want to say, shout out to Katie Fang for right, because the judge
I
came
love
out
Katie
with,
Fang, man.
yeah, she is a rock star. So, really grateful to her. I'm sure most of you may have heard, but she actually sued to be able to get the additional, like I think it was 18 or so emails with the actual names, the put unredacted, because there were names that were blacked out, and they're supposed to produce this information by July 2nd, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
So huge shout out to Katie Fang about that. Before we get into, so we're really grateful to her. Also wanted to shout out to Dean Withers, because did you all see how he debated like 20 or so MAGA women?
I
It
haven't seen it
was,
yet, but
oh my goodness. You know who he is, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, he's a rock star. He's so quick on his feet. So he actually debated 20 MAGA women. It's pretty pathetic to have a young man have to sit there and actually argue with you about your value as a woman and tell you that men, in fact, are
You
not
are
better
worth
leaders.
something, sweetie. You are.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, God bless him, though. Really,
Yeah.
honestly. So that the other thing I wanted to mention, and that we cannot stop talking about the age of consent and also the age of marriage for young girls, right? So just so we make sure that we understand this, 37 out of the 50 states have an age of consent under the age of 18. So 30, that's the majority, is it not? So 30 states set it at, so 37 of 50 states. 30 states set it at 16. And thoughts about that, Jen?
It's interesting when you look at the federal statutes, they differentiate between if the victims are younger than 12 years of age. So even like federal law is really weird about this. Like it was written back in the 1700s or something when you did marry your daughters off at age 12 or something like that. What I find so interesting about this kind of stuff is the valid argument of your rights shouldn't differ from one state to another. So like if I leave California then and go to Texas, my rights are completely slashed because
particularly when it comes to children, correct?
Yeah.
I don't understand how we can federalize certain laws that they can do a national, create a national decision about certain things such as abortion, right? But these are children that are already here. They're born, they're alive, and you're not seeming to give a damn about them, right? Help me with that. So you can leave the state of California where the age of consent is 18. And if a child came to visit me in Ohio, right, the age of consent is 16.
Yeah.
So if that child is 16 years old and they happen to be raped by an adult, I guess what happens?
I think, this is something that progressive and Democratic women should be harping on. But when I look at and really pushing for constitutional amendments for this kind of stuff and recognizing that our rights as human beings should not differ from one state to another. I understand the concept of state rights, and certain states have different environments and different things going on in their states. That makes sense.
Yes.
But overall, as a country, if we cannot even agree that people, whether it's the color of our skin or religion or gender or whatever, we all deserve the basic same human rights. And I look at there's a caucus within the Democratic Party called the Democratic Women's Caucus. And there's a lot of really good women in there. But when you look at a lot of what their issues are, you go to their personal representative websites and you're like, okay, what is it that you're working on? Very few of them even say women's rights. They just don't even talk about it. And the stuff that they're pushing forward is just so minimalistic. And it's like, we need this overall concept that our human rights are the same everywhere we go in this country, or they just don't matter, one or the other. It's kind of like the Constitution and needs to be. Even in immigration, Constitution doesn't exist down here or within 100 miles of any land or sea border. That doesn't make any sense either. It either is the Constitution the rule of the land or it's not. We either have human rights or we don't have human rights. And I can't even get most Democratic women to spit out of their mouth that women are human beings, children are human beings, and even to talk about human rights. And so we got to get people to, like, when we start talking about these candidates, the questions that they're asked in these debates are always like, where do you sit on immigration? How do you feel about ICE being unmasked? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And you never hear anybody say, what are you going to do to fight for women's rights? What are you going to do to fight for children?
To pass the ERA. How about that?
Nothing. They just don't even ask that question.
Let's start there. How long has that taken? An eternity. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say about that, so, and I can include these links, but so because like RAIN has a state law database that shows state specific age laws, like Delaware allowing. So here's the other part. That's a caveat here. There's some states where the limiting consent. So for 16 and 17-year-olds where the adult, Kentucky, right? For example, limiting consent for 16 and 17-year-olds where the adult is at least 10 years older. And so if you're 16 and you're with a 28-year-old, I guess that's acceptable for him to, like, it's insane. It's insane. And the other part of that is child marriage. 33 states still allow marriage under the age of 18. 33. So Oklahoma has a new ban that was enacted, but it does not take effect until November 1. So it's not in force, strict force today. But so think about that. They have not banned child marriage, meaning age 18 with no exceptions. There are still that many states.
Yeah.
33. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the states that, just so we know, states that have banned child marriage, that means 18 with no exceptions, are Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, and now recently Oklahoma.
No state, California?
No. I wanted to tell you that. I wanted to mention that to you. I thought, oh my gosh. Your state still allows child marriage.
I was just at an event with the Attorney General.
Well, maybe you should mention that to the Attorney General. And Unchained at Last reported that nearly 315,000 children were legally married in the U.S. between 2000 and 2021, including children, are we ready? As young as 10 years old, friends. And those marriages were mostly girls married to adult men. This comes as no surprise to us, but I just wanted to mention that. And it's a fuck is right. Fuck is right. I saw that in the comments. Yes, legally, yes, because there are no 10. So while Tom Homan, I mean, obviously, we feel that it's tragic if there was any child that is raped, right? Especially a 9-year-old child. Yet, as they're going on and on about that, no one seems to care that, 315,000 children, mostly little girls, were married to adult age men. So
I think his point is that he feels sad. He feels sad when he has to listen to their story.
Oh, I'm sure that's yes, exactly. I'm sure.
So don't question me about my policies. Right. I'm now thinking about that child I had to listen to, and I can't talk about my policies. So.
And yes, thank you, Carol. Carol pointed out the children who are actually married don't have the same rights as an adult. So that's the other part. So you're literally putting a child into a relationship. You can't even, can you call that a relationship? I feel like that's not, you're putting a child into a situation where they're basically going to be enslaved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the federal government itself, like I said, their answer to sexual assault and allegations is just pay people money to make them shut up. That's all they do. Pay people money to make them shut up. And we need to understand, money compensation is not justice. It's not justice. And we need to start demanding justice in these things. We need to make these men ashamed to be doing this.
I want to make sure I read this to you to get your opinion on this. Francis put in 2015, President Barack Obama awarded former U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official Tom Homan the Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service. Homan, who served as the Executive Associate Director of ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations under the Obama administration, received the honor in recognition of his exceptional leadership and effectiveness in federal career service. Notice we are never, especially Jenn will tell you, I never hear you talk about one administration or a Dem or Republicans being better than another, because you have always pointed out, if I hear one thing from you, this is a shared responsibility among both sides of the aisle. Is that not correct, Jenn?
It is. It's with immigration. It is a shared responsibility on both sides of the aisle. And if you think Democrats are easier on immigrants, you're just repeating right-wing talking points. That is not true. They make promises and then they fail to follow through with those nice promises of humane treatment. And the same is true with the sexual violence. The reason why something like the Epstein thing can happen is because both sides of the aisle are engaged in this. Clinton was in there, Trump was in there. It's both sides of the aisle. And it has more to do with people in power than it does necessarily with each party. I do think that the Republicans right now obviously are the party of pedophiles and allowing all this sexual violence to go on. And I think there's a lot of Democrats who do try and fight for that. We have a lot of good progressives. But the fact of the matter is when it comes down to accountability, then everybody just is like, well, here's some money, tell your story, here's some money, okay, now go away. That's not justice. And so this is why men keep doing it, is because nothing happens to them. We just saw one of Harvey Weinstein's victims, who has testified for years and years and told her story over and over, has now said, I am not going to do this again.
Right.
Because every time I do it, y'all use it for, and I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but
I know exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up.
But y'all just use it for
she said something like
hate.
She said something like justice is like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of was the comment. Seeing justice happen is like a pipe dream or something of that nature. So she just gave up because she wasn't going to do it. It was like a fourth time, a fifth time, something like that. Was it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and even in like the Border Patrol, when we look at like child sexual assault, there's just no justification for that whatsoever. And anybody engaged with that, we need to come to a consensus across the United States that those engaged in child sexual assault and child trafficking need a bare minimum of sentencing, whether that's lifetime or 20 years or whatever it is. We need that across this whole nation, because what we see, like what I see in studying specifically the Border Patrol, is I have agents just recently, BORTAC agent Efrain Cornejo Lopez. Cornejo, I'm not sure. Lopez. He was a BORTAC agent, which is he was a deputy commander of BORTAC, which is their SWAT team, supposed to be, the best of the best kind of thing. Pled guilty to sexual abuse of his stepdaughter and daughter that occurred to both of them for over 11 years. But even though he pled guilty to just 2 minor charges instead of all this other sexual assault, the judge let him off with a stern warning not to ever do it again and lifetime probation. And he doesn't have to report as a sexual offender. And before he was even sentenced to this nothing thing, and the victims, who are now young adults and mothers, begging the judge not to do this, and he still did it, before he even got sentenced to this nothing charge, was already hired through private security companies working for the U.S. Border Patrol. So now he's presumably back, transporting migrants around and children around, and still has access to them. It is insane. This cannot be allowed. We are allowing people who are admitting that they are doing these crimes to get off with absolutely no consequences, and then they will do it again and again and again.
I have been, as someone that was trained to teach abuse prevention, literally all for children in organizations. I have to tell you, all these things that I am here, I mean, everything that's going on are all of the things that you're not supposed to do. All of that. From you're telling me not doing proper background screenings, that's one, which I just want to remind people that background screenings only actually catch less than 5% of offenders. So that's one thing I want to make sure that people understand. So even with background screenings, there's all these other things that need to be in place. And it's like, and it starts with not having predators, especially people that have been already charged and found guilty.
Kind of like the Border Patrol agent who was the chaplain of Tucson sector for many years, who, when he was 14, was adjudicated to have sexually assaulted a female child, but they still hired him anyhow,
See, those are the that should be, these are the types of policies, though, Jen, that should be against
just
the
common
law.
sense. Just absolutely
that should be against the law to hire a sex offender. Also, can I ask a question? Why is it not a felony to rape or a child? Can I ask this question? If you're a sex offender and you have done that to a child, how is that not a felony? Or a woman? It doesn't matter, either, or anyone, or a male. It doesn't, I mean,
they just end up dropping it down to like a misdemeanor exposure charge is what they did.
Oh my God. So maybe that's another policy consideration as well, is if someone is, why should someone who actually was found guilty of raping another person, why should they not receive a felony charge for that?
Because the men, and a lot of times the women, the people in charge, just boil it down to a he said, she said, and this and that. And well, we don't want to ruin your life. I mean, the judge in Efrain's case was like, you're a hero, sir. I'm conflicted. And I'm like, what? He even had his BORTAC fellow agents come into court and testify that they would allow their children to be around him, that he was such a good guy. And then the judge sealed the whole case so nobody could know who those agents were and what they testified to. This is the attitude that that men are entitled to the bodies of others whenever they want it, and to complain about it is just disrupting our whole order and our whole system. Well, we're going to disrupt the shit out of it. That's what I'm going to do. So we should do a thing on ways to strengthen laws against predators. One of the things, just real quick, is DNA. When you apply to a lot of these agencies, whether federal, state, or local, they take your fingerprints. You got to work with children. They take your fingerprints to check that. Right. What they really need to be doing is checking your DNA. And I know a lot of people are like, oh no, then they'll have my DNA. Well, but here's the thing is we would identify, if we ran every Border Patrol agent's DNA right now, dog, seriously. There's going to be some people coming up in the National Federal DNA Database that will target them for rapes and sexual assaults. And we would know. Well, they should be. And they should be doing that. If you want that power, if you want that access, you got to prove that you deserve to be able to have that.
Honestly, can we please expand that to not just Border Patrol or ICE? Shouldn't that be expanded to all federal employees, including Congress?
Oh yeah, seriously.
I mean, come on.
Congress should have to take drug tests as well, and they don't have to take drug tests to be able to do that. And yet
that doesn't make an ounce of sense to me.
You can tell a lot of them look like they're pretty coked up on stuff and everything.
Oh my God. So what we'd like to do is continue to have these conversations. We want to keep them to an hour because I know that, we don't want to just keep, but having very specific things to talk about, make sure people are aware of, and continue having these important conversations about what's going on in our country and women's rights, specifically and the scaffolding that is built to continually take away women's rights so that we can work toward building scaffolding that is actually uplifting women and getting our rights back, right? Because this is something in combat to all of those influencers and those people out there telling women and young people and all people like, oh, just like give away all your rights to your husband. It's totally fine.
It'll be fine.
It's okay. Like, and recently heard Aaron, I don't know. Have you all heard Aaron Parnas reported, I think yesterday, about Trump was looking to eliminate the separation of church and state. Did anyone see that?
I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't read enough about it, but that's something we need to look into and I also think we should talk about the impact that religion has on the lives of women and young girls as well, because there are a lot of denominations that obviously the patriarchy is alive and well, and it is not. I'm not against religion. I believe in God. I had mentioned I was born and raised Catholic. I'm not practicing because of the patriarchy that exists there. But I do believe that we need to take a look at that, because that's really, really dangerous for women.
Yeah.
If they're moving to, I mean, they're already doing it in little bits and pieces. We know that within education and what have you. So.
And it's funny too, because it's all these Christian right people who are like, Sharia law, if we let Muslims in. And it's like, you are instituting the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same fucking thing. You don't want your daughters educated. You want them sitting at home, raising babies, pooping out babies, and taking care of the husband, and the man can do whatever he wants and this and that. That would be great in an economy where maybe one person in the family could earn enough. Well, yeah. Or you had support systems from the government. Oh, those are entitlement programs. Can't have that either. They're selling you a load of shit. And so
I just love the way you say it, actually, too, Jen. I just want to say that. Nobody they're selling you a lot. I love the conviction. I
Trust
do.
me, my mother was like, this is her whole life. She lost her whole life to this kind of crap.
Mhm.
And then went severely mentally ill and alcoholic, and it's just a
I'm
shame. But
sorry.
it's and they just throw you away as women if they don't care about whether or not men can take you and marry you at 10 years of age. Someone wrote in here, you can't even divorce somebody until you're 18 years old, so you can't, I mean, seriously. And if they don't care about them raping children and this and that, they don't care about the large sex trafficking rings and this and that, what makes you think that they're now looking out for you when they tell you don't go to school, don't work, stay home, do what your husband tells you to do, it'll all be fine, blah 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 blah. It will not all be fine.
No.
And you will be stuck. You will be stuck and you will be caught in this system, and there's nothing to support you to get out of it. Every single way is going to be an uphill battle, and they will be punching you in the face while they're doing it. While you're trying to get uphill, they're going to be punching you in the face and in the stomach. That's just the way it is. So I think if we go to like 3 days a week, and then maybe we could also have additionally, we could have people come on, because I know when we started
Yep.
this, we wanted to have a lot more people on.
We do.
I was
And we
thinking of
want to
Dana
do
Dubois and Lawrence as well, and people
Mhm.
like that to get their perspectives and stuff like that. And we just haven't been able to do it. And I feel like you're right. At first, I was like, oh, it's too much, but it was too much for one show. So if we
Mhm.
have this more often, then maybe that would be better. So
Also having representatives and different people um, coming in that know policy in different states, and we need to do some investigation about what policies are out there too, so that during midterms that we can ask the important questions of people that are running for office and what they're going to do in people's individual states to support women's rights. And I want to see the ERA passed. So
yeah, I do too.
how do we get to how do we get there?
I don't know. I know Alyssa Milano. I used to, I did her podcast once or twice back in the day, and I know she was really big in pushing the ERA. So maybe if we look to Alyssa Milano and see what's going on with that, we might be able to discover what's going on with that. So,
And any of the yes, Unchained at Last, check it out for stories about lost or lack of rights. They can tell you about states. Yeah, I will include, when we send this out, I have all those links for you all, so I can include those links so you can do the research yourself. I encourage people to look all of it up because we need to be engaged. This is how we are engaged, right? Democracy is not a spectator sport. And so you shouldn't just take it from us, although we are trustworthy. But you know what? How many people have said that? Trust me.
well, if we get something wrong, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, and if we get something wrong, guys, like, we are not afraid to admit, hey, we screwed this one up. We'll make sure that we let people know for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to be back on Tuesday. We're still figuring out what time. I don't know. We'll talk offline, Jen, and figure out what works best. But if anyone has ideas, thoughts about people you'd like us to have on, other things that you would like us to cover, topics that you'd like us to talk about, please feel free to just send a note, DM me, DM Jen. We're more than happy. Like, we want your feedback because we want to continue doing this. We just want to continue doing whatever we can to help combat what's going on right now, because this is ridiculous. I can't stand how many times I've seen women talk about how they don't need to vote and they want their husband to vote for them and everything else. So we are good. This is what we're doing, what we can. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one show a week, Lisa, we should devote to the states.
Yes.
And look at each state and what's going on. And as we get closer, like, okay, Ohio, you need to be looking at this. Florida, you need to be looking at this. This is how they're attacking it. And just be concise every week and hitting that every week.
And you know what? It would be great if anyone out there knows of different people that are really it doesn't have to be someone that's up for election, but someone that really knows about their state policy that could come on and talk about, hey, this is what's going on in the state of California, in the state of, like you didn't realize that girls could be married.
There's
Right?
just so much going on. And so I think if we focus on that, because we just don't really see, and it could be that we're not seeing it because of the way our media is so like streamified and divided up, that we're just not seeing it because we're so occupied with many other things. But I just don't really see, like, I remember in the 70s, like the women's groups were huge. And in the 20s, the women's groups were huge. And right now, the loudest voice that I'm hearing is Turning Point USA.
But that's because of who is controlling our media, and for all I know, there is a tremendous group out there that is doing something that is, but I don't know. Well, we don't know about it.
Yeah.
Right. We feel very much like, yes, Chris Armitage. Yes.
But the Women's March, you're right. You're
Mm-hmm.
right, Damas. The Women's March has kind of fallen through as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, which that really upsets me. How is it possible that in the midst of us losing all of our rights, we were able to get it together back in, what was it, 2017 or 18 when the Women's March occurred?
I don't know. I can't remember. It first started with his inauguration, right? So 2017, I think, because the election was in 2016.
But I'm saying, like, why are women should be, if we're not pissed off now, I don't really know when we ever will be. That's all I can say. So, okay, so we'll be back. We're doing this again on Tuesday. Yes, it all did start in 16.
Okay.
So we've been dealing with this shit for 10 years, actually more, but yeah, it's been spiraling. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. I wish everyone a good day, and we'll be back in action on Tuesday.
Right.
Oh, wait, let's do our heart.
I can't do it, but my hands will do it. So
thanks, everyone. What time? We're going to let you know, probably later in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Lisa does better in the afternoon, she says. So.
Well, also, I think it's hard for some people. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, but all these are recorded, and they'll be out both on Scaffolding and Lisa's platform. You're going to put it on Eleanor's page as well?
I think I will.
Is it Ellen?
Eleanor's Squad.
Squad. Thank you.
I think I'll share it. I'll just share it from Eleanor's Squad, and we'll put it on Scaffolding.
And then I'll share it from mine too. So.
And also, there have been a few people that were paid subscribers to Scaffolding. I'm not putting out. I'm just letting anyone know in case they are on here. We have not pulled any of those funds out, but we are planning to donate those funds to women, groups that are actually doing something for women. We have not decided what those are yet, but that is what we're going to do.
Okay.
All right. Scaffolding is the platform that we're actually on right now. We started this. So, okay. All right, guys, we'll make sure that we are cognizant of time zones for everybody, and hopefully we'll pick a time that works for people. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Have a good day.